Welcome to the solution video for the link challenge. I've got Visual Studio 2019 open here, so let's go to create a new project. And we just need a console app.NET Core. You can search for it in here, make sure it's .NET Core, or just, I have it in my research project template list, so it's just easy to go there. All right, let's call this the link, and I'll do just lowercase inq. Technically it's capital LINQ, but for naming purposes in Visual Studio, I like to do lowercase for everything but the first letter. So link challenge and link challenge app. We'll hit create. And once this gets done, we will add our console read line at the end and wipe out the standard message, which is the hello world. And it says that the Pythia package did not load right. That's okay. So something I have installed didn't work right. That's okay. Read line at the end. Okay. So now we're ready to get started. And really, we don't have to do even a separate method for this. I think we'll do it all right in line. So let's do a string. We'll call this input. And we'll start with hello world. And that's going to be our string that we're going to figure out, is there repetition in there? How many repetitions are there? For example, the L's, we have 1, 2, and then a third. So it's 3 L's. There's a couple of O's, and that might be all the repetition, but we'll see. So now let's create our link statement. We're going to get a list of letters. So let's go var letters equals from X in input. Now what is X? Well, that's a name I gave it, kind of like a for each, where you say for each var item in item list. Well, this is item. This is the name of each individual item that we're going to pull out of input. Now, since input is a string, it's going to break it apart into letters. And therefore, X will represent each letter individually. So now let's do our order by. Now, this is one that's a little tricky because unlike SQL, you always put the select last in a link statement. So everything else comes first. So you start with from, and then you do order by or where or group by or whatever. And then at the end, you do select. So we're going to order by first. Now, I'm just going to show you this because it's not going to work the way you expect. If we order by X, which is the letter, and then say select X, that's going to order the letters, and then it's going to select. And whoops, we can't say X, order by X, because string does not contain a definition for order by. And I know why. Because we actually need to bring in the link using link. So let's do that. Using system.link. There we go. So now we have an order by. So that's the first thing to do with the console application in .NET Core is you have to bring in that using statement. That's a little change from .NET Framework. The same libraries are there, or at least they look the same. But you have to bring in the using statement for them because by default, we have just a using system, nothing else. And the reason for that is because they wanted us to not have to clean up their stuff every time. And so instead they said, hey, why don't we let you bring in just the stuff that you want? That does mean you have to bring in the stuff that you want every time. So we now have this list, but like I said, it's not going to be quite what you expect. So let's do a for each. We can say for each letter in letters. And let's do a console write line. We're just going to say letter. That's it. So we're going to print off all the different letters. Let's run this and see what we get for a result. capital H, capital W, lowercase d. Wait a minute. D is not after W. But then notice D-E-L-L-L-O-O-R. Those are in order. So what's happened is it has sorted the capital letters first, and then it started over and sorted the lowercase. And the reason for this is because these are not strings. These are char characters. So each X is a char. Notice I mouse over, it says char. Well, a char is a bit different because it's a specific number in a char array or char list. And capital letters come before lowercase in that char list. And so capital H is not the same thing as a lowercase h. But if we do dot to string on our order by and then run it again, notice now it's D-E-H-L-L-L-O-O-R-W. It's now ordered them properly because of the fact that it's a string, and string comparison is case insensitive by default. Therefore, it says that D is the lowest character and W is the highest or the last. All right, so that is the primary challenge, or the solution for the primary challenge. Now, I'm going to comment this out instead of changing it. The challenge says to modify it, but I want you to have a copy of the primary challenge. So we're going to start over again, and I'll even use some of the same wording in order to make things easier. Just know you can't have both of them enabled at the same time. So let's say var letters equals from X in input. Okay, so we're starting off with the same basic premise. We're pulling each letter from the input. But then we're going to group. So group, now it's just group, not group by. So we're going to group X by X. What it's saying is it'd be a little more clear if we had an array of objects with different properties. But in this case, we're just grouping by the entire letter. So group by the letters, okay? And put the result into Y. So we're going to group by each letter. So again, those L's, all three L's will be grouped together, and they get put into this Y variable. And they're going to order by Y dot count. So Y is an array now, or a list, and so one of the things we have access to is count. So how many items are in your set? Okay, so you mouse over it, it says it's an I grouping, and it has char char. So it's grouped the characters, and now we can pull out of that group certain information. One of the things is count. We can look at the rest of them in just a minute. So we're going to group by count descending, because we want 3 to be the top, then 2, then 1, and that's all, I think. So group by descending, but we're not quite done yet. We also want to group by letter or character. So Y dot, and this is, notice there's a whole set of information you can do here, but one of the options down here is key. It's a property. It gets the key of the I grouping. And what that is a char. It's going to return a char, and that is the item we're grouping on. So we're talking about L, so you have 3 for the count, and L is the char. Now remember, because you want to do an order where it's case insensitive, we need to do a toString. So we've ordered by 2 different things, and now what we want to do is do a select statement. This is a little bit more advanced than just select X or Y. we need to create a new list of anonymous objects. So new, new, curly braces. Let's say letter equals y dot key. That'll be a char, and that's okay. And then count equals y dot count. All right, there's our select statement. Now, this is still going to have a bug in it. It's going to be a subtle bug because it won't manifest right away. But I'm going to show you in just a minute. But let's, for now, do our for each. So for each letter in letters. And we'll do a console write line. But this time, we're going to do our string interpolation, that $sign in front of the string, so that we can say the letter is letter dot letter. Not repeats, but it adds an extra space too. Let's run this. L is still 3. Why is that? Well, capital L is 1. Interesting, huh? Because we didn't do our grouping properly. So let's stop this. So the solution here depends on what your requirements are. Now, if you're saying that capital L and lowercase l are different, then we're set. We're done. But if you were expecting to count the letters and you were thinking case insensitive, as in an L is an L is an L, whether it's capital L or lowercase l, it's the same thing, then we've got a problem. And the solution here is to come up here to the X. So group X by X dot to string. That's not quite good enough. To lower. So now we're converting what we're grouping by to lowercase. Now if we run this, we see that L has a count of 4, not 3. And there is no lowercase in this list, because we set all of them to be lowercase. If you want to see uppercase instead, you could do the opposite and do to upper. But just know that you kind of can't have your cake and eat it too. You're either going to have it be all lowercase or all uppercase and count that way, or you have to treat them as separate characters. And the reason why is because Y's key is a char. So it can't be both uppercase and lowercase. You have to specify one. In this case, we specified lowercase, and now it works. Okay, so you've modified the link query to return a list of anonymous objects. That's what letters is now. It's an IEnumerable of tick A, which is an anonymous type. Okay, and the anonymous is specified as having two properties, a letter property and a count property, and that's a string and an integer. So it returns two values, and we've ordered them by count descending first, and then secondly by the key which is that letter, so you can say, okay, A comes first and Z comes last, but only after you've ordered by the number of items in the list. So always, L will always be at the top because L has 4 characters and everything else has less than that. Okay, so we've created an anonymous object, we've done the count, we've populated the count with the number of times the letter is used, we've ordered the list properly. So we've done everything that the bonus challenge has asked for as well. So once you get comfortable with how LINQ works, it's really not that difficult to write your own query statement in LINQ to get just what you want. The complex part is understanding how these different placeholder variables come into play, and then making sure you know the different terms and the order they come in, and finally, how to return anonymous objects if you want them. Now, I specified anonymous objects, but if we had a letter model, so if I came down here and said public class letter model and put 2 properties in it, let's put a property called string letter and another one called int count, like so. We could say new letter model. And now it's not anonymous anymore. In fact, if we mouse over letters, it's now an IEnumerable of letter model. And each letter is a letter model object. So now we've made it strongly typed and not anonymous. It's no longer anonymous. It's actually got a concrete type in C#. So it's up to you how you do this. But for us, we just want an anonymous type. I'll leave the class in there if you want to use that as well. But this anonymous type works very, very similarly to the actual concrete type of letter model. Either way is possible. Okay, so that is the solution for the LINQ challenge. Hopefully you kind of follow along, got most of it, if not all of it, and hopefully you got something to practice going forward. Thanks for watching, and as always, I am Tim Corey.